A couple days ago, Chime Bank customers were faced with a nightmare scenario. They weren't able to access their accounts. That meant that millions of people weren't able to pay bills, withdraw cash, or even see if they had any money in their account at all. Chime Bank merely said that their system was down, and this freaked out a ton of people. Now, Chime Bank started off as a disruptor in the financial technology world. They have millions and millions of customers, and one of the key things is that they were able to give you access to your direct deposit a few days early, and they did all of their banking with no fees at all. Now Chime Bank is simply disrupting people's lives, and people aren't able to get their direct deposit at all, and they're incurring fees through late payments through all their vendors and other creditors. This video, I'm going to tell you specifically what happened with Chime, my thoughts on Chime more generally, and what to do if you have an online bank that goes down and what to do in that scenario. So my name's Kevin. I make videos like this all the time about banking, investments, personal finance, passive income. So if that's the sort of thing that you're into, be sure to subscribe to the channel and be sure to like the video. Now let me jump into it. Now bank outages are rare, but they do happen. It even happens to firms like Wells Fargo, which experienced one back in February. Now Wells Fargo may not be the best example, but suffice it to say it happens every now and again. That's why there's something called FDIC Insurance, to prevent customers from simply fleeing or fearing in the event of a bank collapsing or having their services go dark for a little while. It gives people some assurance, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while. Now, what I find interesting about this moment with Chime is that this is the third time since July that Chime has experienced some form of an outage. Now, it may not be Chime's fault because they were relying on a third-party vendor, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more, but the point is it happened at a time when Chime is in the midst of raising money to give themselves a $5 billion valuation. That's pretty bad. The CEO of Chime issued an apology saying, oh, we're sorry, it won't happen again, yada, yada, yada. But since this has happened so many times, I really was looking into it and thinking, why did this happen? Well, it turns out that Chime is relying upon a third-party vendor called Galileo, which processes payments for Chime and also a lot of other banks out there, such as Varo and Robinhood. So this is pretty interesting. I dug more into it and realized that Chime relies upon Galileo to such an extent that if Galileo suffers a problem, Chime is also going to suffer a problem. So this will happen again to Chime or to other banks like Robinhood and Varo out there. Chime is an online-only bank, so it has no physical branches, and their customer service, like Robinhood, is notoriously bad because they try to streamline things as much as possible and pass on the savings in the form of new services to the customer that don't cost the customer anything. But what are you supposed to do if you face a problem like this? What are you actually supposed to do if you have bills upcoming? And what are you supposed to do if you have to make those bills but Chime is out for a day or 2 days or 3 days? Or what if it's a month or longer? What are you supposed to do? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down a couple suggestions that I have to get around the problem and also to mitigate problems in the future. Number one, you want to be sure to contact your creditors. So if you have bills upcoming, whether it's through your landlord or through your credit card company, you want to be able to communicate with them and let them know that you're suffering an issue that isn't your fault. It's not for lack of funds that you have, it's for lack of accessibility of those funds. For example, with a credit card company, what you'll want to do is actually pick up the phone and call the customer service rep. Be sure that you have any documentation, if possible, from Chime or your online bank if it failed, and be able to show the bank customer at the credit card company some of that documentation. Some of these things might be official Twitter messages from the company like Chime has issued, or it might be email correspondence or even screenshots of your inaccessibility of your account. You want to explain to the people on the other side of the line, your creditors, that look, it's not your fault, you will have the money to them, but you're suffering a hiccup due to no fault of your own. They're probably going to be understanding if you're pretty firm in telling them exactly what happened, but also nice and conscientious. They're going to work with you. They're going to develop a payment plan for you on your credit card. They might even waive late fees. This has happened to me before on unrelated matters when I've missed a credit card payment and I thought, dang, I totally forgot about that. I got an interest charge and a late fee charge, and all I did is call the bank and they said, you know what, you've been a customer for a long time, we're going to waive it. Chances are they're going to do that to you, especially if you've been a customer at a long time at some of those banks. Believe it or not, these sort of things happen from time to time. People experience life issues which disrupt their ability to pay their bills on time, but those creditors are going to want to work with you because it's more of a pain for them to try to hunt you down and get extra interest charges from you and have you potentially leave their bank because you're upset with them because they didn't work with you than it is for them to make you happy during that one time. So chances are they will make accommodations for you. Now, when it comes to somebody like your landlord who isn't a mega firm that has, a bunch of different customer representatives and it might be just somebody that you deal with on a month-to-month basis, you're going to want to contact them and let them know the same story. They may not be as lenient, or they may be. It'll have to be determined by the individual landlord. But if you do your best to show, look, this is an unusual issue, and you actually show them, this is where I have all my money, can you please just work something out with me and I'll be sure to pay you next time, chances are they're going to want to do that. Now, in all these situations, if you are issued a late charge, whether it's from your landlord, your utility company, or your credit cards, you're going to want to save that documentation, because once Chime Bank does get up and running, or once one of your online banks which has shut down does get up and running again, you're going to need all that documentation in order to go to them and get reimbursed for all of those fees. You're going to want to hold on to that, because it's going to be a crucial piece of getting your life back in order and getting you back to where you should be. The second thing I would recommend in the event that your bank goes dark, like Chime, is to use your credit card for your everyday payments on different things that you might use. For example, I read things online where people weren't able to go to a restaurant or to a grocery store because they were paying with their Chime debit card, and Chime wasn't able to give them access to their account. Therefore, they weren't able to pay for groceries or restaurant bills. Now, what I would say is it's always better to use a credit card over a debit card in all these transactions, because you get rewards, you get protection in a way that debit cards don't give you, and you get an ability to pay for that bill that you charge on your credit card sometime after you've actually charged it. For example, if you charge something on your credit card, you might get the bill statement for it 30 days later, which gives you an ability to get your cash in order to pay that bill. Now, with that being said, obviously credit card debt is something that plagues a lot of people. If you don't pay your bills, you're going to get hit with those giant interest charges, which is never a good thing. All I'm saying is, if you have grocery bills and you have a credit card that you can use, I'd highly recommend using that, because it's better than not being able to go to groceries. Or the alternative is take a loan from somewhere that gives you a high interest rate, and it's going to ruin your credit and everything else. You might as well just use a credit card if you have one. I recommend getting the Chase Freedom Unlimited card if you don't already have a card. You can get approved for it right away, and once you're approved, you can actually call Chase and ask them politely to ship it to you on an expedited basis. So hopefully you can get that credit card within a few days. So if you had Chime on Wednesday and you didn't have your direct deposit, but you needed to pay for bills, you could have gone Wednesday night, applied for the card, gotten approved, called Chase and have them ship it to you and get it on Thursday or Friday, and then you're back on normal, and then you have 30 days from there to be able to pay that credit card bill. By that time, Chime and those other banks are probably going to have their services up and running, and you can connect the two and pay off your bill. Now, the cool thing about Chase Freedom Unlimited is that it has no annual fee of any kind, and for the people who are suffering from a situation where they're not able to get their cash out of the bank, then this Chase Freedom Unlimited card has, I think, 15 or 18 months of 0% interest on those charges if you make your minimum payment every month. So not that you're going to need it for that long, but it does give you a little bit of comfort knowing that if something were to occur and you had a hiccup down the line because of Chime and because of these banks, then you have a little bit of time to deal with those issues. Now, if you do have a credit card and you need to pay for bills that don't actually take a credit card, such as rent, a lot of times that's not the case, then you can use a service online which charges a fee, which I'd recommend not doing unless you absolutely had to. And the service is called Plastic. It charges 2.5% on whatever you're paying with your credit card, and it issues a check from that company to your landlord, to your utility bill company, whatever it is, whatever the company that is not accepting the credit card payment, it'll actually create a check for them, and all you do is just use it and then it issues a check. So it's pretty straightforward, charges you money. I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you absolutely had to. But if you had a credit card, that is an option that you could take. Now, number 3, the third thing that I'd recommend for people to take note of whenever Chime or another bank account goes down is to just take a breather, relax, and realize that your money is going to be safe. If your money is protected by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, it is not going to be wiped out no matter what happens to a bank like Chime or any of these other banks out there. If Chime were to collapse and it all of a sudden went totally bankrupt, you still wouldn't lose any money so long as it complied with FDIC rules, which is that it was held with an FDIC insured bank and was below the amount of that certain year, which in this case is $250,000. So if you had Chime and you had less than $250,000 into it, don't worry, you're not going to lose a dime. Even if the account is messed up online and it doesn't display your full account balance, just relax. With Chime specifically, Chime actually sweeps your funds into a bank called the Bancorp Bank, and you can actually call the Bancorp Bank, which I have in the link in the description below, their information, and you can call them and say, look, I'm customer XYZ. They'll probably ask for your social security information, and you're able to verify that you have money in the Bancorp Bank, which is FDIC insured, and that'll provide you a little bit of relief. So the people who have their phones and aren't able to see that they have money in their Chime Bank account can just skip the middleman, which is Chime, and go directly to where their bank, directly where their cash is actually being held, which is at the Bancorp Bank, and verify that they have that information there. So for all those people who are freaking out or who may potentially freak out, totally understandable, but realize that FDIC insurance, the reason why it's so important is for situations like this. It's for people to realize that there is a backstop, there is going to be protection, and this is why you should always, 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 no matter what bank you're with, whether it's Chime or SoFi or Varo, Bank of America, whoever it is, make sure that it's FDIC insured because you will not lose money. So those are my 3 tips that I'd recommend people follow in the event that Chime Bank shuts down again or another bank account that they have shuts down. Now let me mention a few other things that I think are really important to keep in mind in the event that you experience a situation like this, which I expect there to be more situations like this in the future. So the first one I'd recommend is if you get a phone call, and this goes really with any scenario, from somebody who claims to be from Chime Bank or from another bank company out there, do not give them any information at all. If they call and say, look, I'm from Chime Bank, I'm here to tell you that your account is X, Y, and Z, and they try to ask you for any information, immediately hang up, go online, look up Chime Bank's number or whoever this bank is, and then call them back directly and then go from there. Because a lot of times scammers and fraudsters out there will actually use situations like this where millions of people are affected and randomly call a bunch of people saying that they're from Chime, and they're able to extract social security information, private information from people like you because you're thinking, look, Chime Bank is trying to be proactive and they want my information and they're going to help me out. Do not follow that bait and switch. It happens to a lot of people all the time. Always hang up and call them back directly. No matter what it is, it's going to protect you if you're in this situation. Another thing that I'd recommend is use this situation as the impetus for you to open bank accounts elsewhere. You want to always have a couple different bank accounts just in case any one of them experiences technical issues like Chime Bank just did. So for example, I have SoFi Money, which is an account that I really like and I've recommended for quite a while. I have a link in the description below for those who are interested in it. I have that for one of my accounts. I also have Chase Bank as one of my accounts, and I also have Wealthfront as one of my accounts. I have multiple bank accounts just in case anything happens. Also, these bank accounts give me different perks, they give me different interest rates, and they all have their own place within my portfolio. But the point is, if you have multiple bank accounts, you're going to be better able to deal with situations like this. One of them is going to be down, you're going to be able to access money at your other bank accounts. On that same line of thought, you always want to have an emergency fund. Now, you want to have this emergency fund ideally split amongst a few different banks or at one bank that you know you're able to access no matter what. So an emergency fund is exactly what it sounds like. It's a few $1,000s, whatever it may be, whatever money that you can actually store away and use in the event of an emergency in case something like this happens, in case something like this, or if something else happens, such as, you get in a car wreck or you have an unexpected medical bill or any number of things. You always want to have an emergency fund at a place that you can access or spread out amongst a few different banks. A few other things I'd mention is if you're in a tight spot, I'd recommend not pursuing a payday loan company, doing those sorts of things. Try if you can, and I know it might be a little awkward, but to borrow money from friends and family just to hold you over to pay those expenses that you cannot push off by using the strategies I mentioned earlier. Try to do that and say, look, I can't access my money, I have it's right there. Please just a few days and then pay them back after a little while. Take them to lunch, it'll be much better than trying to go get a loan from one of these companies that's gonna charge you 100, 200, 300% interest within a short period of time. You don't wanna be in that situation. And also remember always to keep track of all of your expenses related to this matter and call back Chime Bank or whatever bank account that you may have and say, listen, I really liked this experience beforehand with Chime or whoever I'm using as an example. Listen, Chime, I really like banking with you, but the problem is now I've incurred all of these expenses as a result of your malfeasance. Please, can you help me out? Otherwise, I'm going to be forced to move my money elsewhere, and they're going to want to work with you, and they're going to want to reimburse you for those charges. It's a smart strategy. Be firm, be honest, and also be on top of it to where you don't have to pay for the mistakes of another bank. Now, with all of that being said, I made a review video on Chime if you want to check it out to get my honest thoughts about Chime Bank. I made this a few weeks ago, and I ultimately decided not to recommend it because I felt that it wasn't the best bank account for many reasons, not only for the technical reasons, which I talked about briefly, but also because I thought Chime Bank didn't offer really much in the way of interest. It offers a 0.01% interest rate on your savings accounts, and the features that it really pushes I don't think are very important, such as the early direct deposit, because once you're set on a schedule where you get paid 2 days early, you're going to get paid 15 days after that. You're on the same scenario as before. And so look at my video on Chime Bank if you want to get my thoughts on it and you want to get the account, or you just want a different opinion on it. Check it out. I also have other videos online there that talk about other accounts such as Varo and SoFi Money, where I give my honest thoughts on them, and I'm always going to give you exactly what I think. I didn't feel highly on Chime. Chime had a referral program. I didn't feel that it was a good enough bank for me to recommend, so I didn't put that link in my description below, and that's basically what I try to stick to here. I try to give my honest opinion, I think. So if you really like this video, be sure to comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this. Is Chime a bank that you're going to recommend to your friends? Or are you done with Chime? Is this just too much? Is 3 times since July just way too much to handle? You don't want to be dealing with this headache anymore? And if so, let me know in the comments below. I really want to know what your thoughts are. And if this video helped you out, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thanks.